Welcome to Bayou Time. I'm Jacob DeGate. It's now my pleasure to be joined by State Representative Beryl Amedee. Beryl, thank you very much for joining us. You're currently in the middle of a session. Can you tell us, how things are going?
Well, the pace is really picking up. We are in the final weeks of this legislative session, and so we are now seeing what we always see at this point in time, where all the bills tend to bottleneck. And for example, earlier this week, we had the longest agenda on the House floor so far this session with 57 bills. And today we have even more. I think we're up to about 63 that we're supposed to vote on today on the House floor.
Well, that's certainly a lot to keep track of. And I know there's some specific areas that you were trying to touch on. One was, trying to curb, which you believe to be some government overreach in regards to vaccine mandates. Can you tell us a little bit about that?
Sure. Government overreach has been a theme of many of the bills this legislative session. We still have certain bills that are proposed and that are moving concerning things like a governor's authority during an emergency, a local government authority during an emergency, and even certain veto powers. And so government overreach is a theme in non-COVID times, but after what we've been through the past 2 years or so, a lot of the bills that we're seeing deal with vaccine mandates. And some of those are moving, some of them have finished their course now. And one of the things I wanted to bring up was an instrument called House Concurrent Resolution 3. And this was a bill by Representative Larry Bagley, or I should say Chairman Bagley. He's the chairman of House Health and Welfare. Several months ago, the Department of Health set a policy in place for giving COVID vaccines to children. And right now, the policy stands, and it would require, I think starting with the next school year, that students would get COVID vaccines. And so the Health and Welfare Committees met, and they voided that policy. And after they met, the governor vetoed the action of the committees by overruling it. And so at this point in time, the policy stands. And so coming into this legislative session, a resolution is something that a governor cannot veto. And so the HCR 3 is a suspensive resolution, and it would say that this policy cannot and will not go into place until a year after next year's legislative session. That's how suspensive resolutions work. And that bill made it all the way through the House, and it got stalled in a Senate committee. Last week, Senate Health and Welfare failed to pass the bill, and so the outcry from the public has been so strong, the Senate is considering sending it back to committee for another hearing and see if it'll fare better, or possibly bringing it directly to the Senate floor. And so we'll have to stay tuned and see what action gets taken on the Senate side. As far as other bills that deal with vaccine mandates, we have a great number of them, and they do a variety of things. For example, some deal with employee exemptions when an employer mandates a COVID shot, or maybe any vaccines really, and others deal specifically with schools and students. And I have a few of those myself. One of them that I'm carrying right now would prohibit the State Board of Education or the Department of Education or local school boards and schools from recommending any medical procedure, including a vaccine. The idea here is to let the education professionals, the education experts, make decisions concerning education matters, but let health experts and health professionals make the decisions and recommendations concerning medical matters. As it stands right now, if a school official would recommend, let's say Ritalin for a hyperactive student, then the school could actually be made to pay for that Ritalin, and could even possibly be sued if something goes wrong with the student taking this medication. And so the schools don't want to be put in that position. And so this bill is an effort to be sure that only medical authorities make medical decisions and schools make education decisions. Another bill that I'm bringing is one that provides for civil remedies whenever a student submits an exemption to the school because they have an objection, whether it's medical or religious, concerning any particular required vaccine. And those exemptions are supposed to be received by the school and put in a file. And then if there's an outbreak of that illness, say mumps, for example, then that student would be required to stay home. Right now, this is already in law. Parents can already submit these exemptions, and the schools are supposed to accept them. But the Department of Education has not been good at enforcing this, and so some schools have been denying them. And right now, a parent could bring a lawsuit if that happens. And what this bill does is it simply statute that a parent can bring a lawsuit. And so that one's making its way through the House right now. So those are some examples of some of the bills that we're handling concerning government overreach and government requirements, especially related to COVID shots.
Okay, and one of the things, I guess people that are in favor of vaccines, they always say that, well, the students can opt out if they want to. What is your response to that?
Yes, in law, if a student has any particular immunization that they should not take or don't want to take, maybe there's a medical problem, maybe there's a religious objection, they are able to opt out by simply submitting something in writing to the school.
I know one area that's always been important to you is education. Can you tell us, what's going on with some of the bills regarding education?
Well, we have seen, and we still have a few more to see, bills concerning education savings accounts, or by the acronym ESAs. 5 or maybe 7 different bills on ESAs, and some of them are still moving. An education savings account, according to legislation, would be an account where it's kind of like a health savings account, where you can only use the money that's in that account for education purposes. And the reason that we have many bills about education savings accounts, and that it sometimes is controversial, is because this is not just simply an account where I might put my own money into it to save up for my children's education. Those accounts do exist, but these ESAs are going to include some deposits of tax dollar funding. So the education industry, the education department would be depositing some of the funds into those accounts. It's not just the account, it's not just funds out of mom and dad's pocket. And so because it's tax dollars in use, this is why we have lots of legislation, lots of discussions, lots of debates about all the particulars. And so we've got some ESA bills moving that would apply to only students who have learning disabilities. Some apply only to students who have been bullied at a school. There's just a big variety of which students may be able to set up these ESAs. And then the parents would be able to take that money and send the child to, say, a private school, and it would cover the tuition, for example. And so there are many bills that we've heard, one even today in House Education, and some are still moving, and we'll just have to wait for all the dust to settle to see what makes it all the way through the process.
And so that's not just for college. It can also be used for, high school and elementary schools as well. Is that correct?
In fact, these are specific to K-12.
Okay.
Yes.
Okay. Good deal. Now, I think another area that you were concerned about was transparency with, budgets of schools. Can you tell us a little bit about that?
Yes, we are always making an effort to bring transparency to all of departments and agencies so that the taxpayers can see where the money is going and whether it's being put to good use. And right now we have a few bills moving concerning education transparency, which would require school districts to put their budgets online. And some already do, but this would actually require it across the board. And this way the public would be able to access the general information about where the dollar amounts are going. Of course, they're not going to be able to see an individual's payroll, for example, but they may be able to see the total payroll for the school district. They'll be able to see contracts and other details. And so those bills are moving. And we also have a number of bills concerning parental rights that would allow transparency in that when a parent wants to be able to see what's being used to teach their child in the classroom, they would be able to view that. And We already have something in law called a Parental Bill of Rights that lists a whole host of things that parents do have access to if they simply ask. Some of the bills moving would ask for the schools to make more of this accessible online so that a parent doesn't even have to ask. But we know that those can be a little more controversial because they may require more funding to be able to post these things, not only for internet purposes, but for staff to be able to put it all up there. So the conversation's going on, and it will continue. Other bills that we're dealing with in education are bills that would support teachers. We just passed 2 resolutions from the Senate out of the Education Committee on the House side today, and those would set up teacher advisory boards at the local school district level and also one at the state level. And this way it would give teachers a greater voice in all of the policies and decisions that are going to affect them. It's something I think that's long overdue and something that some school districts have been doing already. So it's not really a new idea. I think it's just one that people are really excited about. And one bill that I'm carrying, another form of a transparency bill, is called the Right to Speak bill. And this bill affects school boards. Some school boards in this state in the past year or two have actually taken steps to reduce or limit the members of the public coming to speak at the school board meetings. And that's not how our public meetings laws are supposed to work, especially when you have an elected board. And so what this bill would do is it would require that at a minimum of 1 school board meeting per month, there is an open public comment period where the public may come and speak on an item that is not necessarily on the agenda. They've already got to have public comment before they vote on each item on the agenda, but this would allow for the public to address the school board on an issue not on the agenda. And also, some parents have complained that they weren't able to get their school board to put an item on the agenda. And this bill provides an opportunity or a method by which parents or the community could get an item onto the agenda. And it would be simply by 15 members of the community sending in written requests. So I'm hoping that works.
Okay, what stage of the process is it right now? Has it been voted on yet, or it's just been
The Right to
introduced?
Speak bill, it has cleared House Education. It goes to the House floor today, and I'm hoping that it has a really good support and makes it all the way through the Senate.
Representative, one of the I guess areas that I had a question about, I know it was vetoed last year by the governor, was the constitutional carry bills. Where can you tell us, or what can you tell us where they are this year?
Well, we have 2 that I'm familiar with that are actually moving, and one is a Senate bill, and it's actually over on the House side. I believe it was heard in committee today, and so it'll be headed to the House floor. The other is a House bill. It made it to the Senate side, and I don't know if it's scheduled in committee yet. It's been referred to the committee, but I don't think it's been scheduled yet. So there's a possibility that we could end this session with both of them passing. And if the governor vetoes them, then I suppose we'll be talking again about whether we come back for an override session, because Louisiana is a pro-Second Amendment state.
Yeah, and now I believe both sides of us have it. I believe Texas passed it recently, and Mississippi has always had it, so we're right in the middle of those states that don't have it. But it'll be interesting to see where those go. Another area that, of course, this year that has a lot of talk about it is bills dealing with abortion. Of course, you had the Supreme Court leak its opinion overturning Roe v. Wade, or saying that decision needs to be left up to the states. Can you tell us what's going on in the House with regards to those bills?
Sure. Well, when we had to draft our bills for this session, of course, that was way back in January through March, and there were already bills filed for this session concerning right to life, with the anticipation that maybe the Supreme Court might move this year to overturn Roe v. Wade. And because of the leak that was all in the news in the past 2 weeks, it seems that they may very well be moving in that direction and soon. So there are several bills that are moving through the process, and I believe that the only one remaining that's still moving right now is Senate Bill 342, and that's by Senator Katrina Jackson. What's happening is this. In Louisiana law, over the years, we have done a number of things to prepare for the eventual day when Roe v. Wade is overturned. And so in law right now, we have a few conflicting statutes. So which one is going to stand? We have the heartbeat bill. We have one that I think is at 16 weeks. We have just a variety of statutes that say when an abortion is no longer allowed. In order to bring those together and decide where we're actually going to stand as a state, what our laws are actually going to say, there is the way the law works. When we have conflicting statutes, the courts usually determine which one stands by the one that was passed last. They like to say that this was the most recent will of the legislature. And so if we can move a bill this session that can tie up all those loose ends, it will be the last or the most recent will of the legislature, and it will take precedence over the other statutes. And so I believe that is what Senator Jackson's bill is attempting to do. Now, at the moment, the bill was amended before leaving the Senate, and the amendment itself is going to be controversial. So we'll see what happens when it comes. The amendment had to do with the right to abort an unborn baby if it's determined that the baby has some very significant abnormalities. And so that's going to be a very debated topic. So stay tuned. We'll see what happens.
Well, it's certainly interesting to follow. And one area or one bill that, of course, got national attention was one that would have, I guess, made it a crime for the mother to, or actually charge it as a homicide for the mother to have an abortion. What was that one killed, or where is the status of that one?
Yes, that one was returned to the calendar on the House floor, and I'm pretty sure that's where it's going to stay. The bill was controversial in the best of circumstances, but it was made even more controversial by a lot of legal people saying things that the bill did that it didn't really do. For example, one of the big arguments was the bill is retroactive, and so if the bill would pass, if a woman would stand up at a pro-life rally and say that she had an abortion 10 years ago, she could be arrested and tried for murder and put on death row. And it's like, okay, first of all, the bill was not retroactive, so that goes right out the window to begin with. As to whether someone who would have an abortion after the bill would go into law, could be arrested and tried, and under what charges, that's rather unclear. Even if the bill says that she could be tried for homicide, it would still be up to DAs to prosecute. And right now we're told that 60% of the abortions in the state are done under coercion. And so if you do go to court after having committed a crime under coercion, usually your penalties are reduced, and those people who coerced you would actually suffer some penalties. So I'm not sure how that would all play out if the bill had passed. But one other issue that was brought up was people said that it would make in vitro fertilization illegal. But from my understanding of the bill, it would not. We have a robust section of law all about the rights of the embryo that's produced in vitro fertilization, and I believe that they would be fully protected. So it would only determine what's done with the embryos that are not utilized.
All right. Well, thank you very much for joining us. I appreciate you coming on.
Yes, sir.
All right. Stay tuned for more right here on HTV.